Henchard is the mayor, not wishing to be noticed until she knew more. She quietly took her daughter's arm and left the busy place. Getting a couple of biscuits from the baker's shop, they then walked towards the music. The town band was playing in front of the King's Arms Hotel, the best hotel in Casterbridge. From the opposite side of the street, everything that was going on in the main room of the hotel could be seen quite clearly. For this reason, quite a large crowd had gathered there. We might perhaps, after all, make a few inquiries about our relative Mr. Henchard here, whispered Mrs. Newson, who seemed strangely weak and worried. I just want to ask how he is. You, Elizabeth Jane, had better be the one to do it. I am too worn out. Elizabeth Jane went and stood among the crowd. She asked an old man standing close by what was happening. It's a great public dinner for all the important men, the old man told her. As we ordinary people aren't invited, they leave the window shutters open so that we can see what is happening from out here. That's Mr. Henchard, the mayor at the end of the table, facing you, and those are the councilmen on the right and left. Mr. Henchard, said Elizabeth Jane, surprised. She went closer to get a better view. Her mother had heard the old man's words and stepped up to Elizabeth Jane's side as quickly as she could. There before them, in the chair of dignity, sat Susan's husband, older and heavier, but still recognizable. He was dressed in an old-fashioned evening suit, a white shirt with jeweled studs, and around his neck he wore a heavy gold chain. 3 glasses stood at his right hand, but to his wife's surprise, the 2 for wine were empty, while the third was half full of water. When Susan had last seen him, he was sitting in a corduroy jacket, waistcoat and breeches, with a bowl of hot vermity in front of him. Time, the magician, had done much here. Watching him and thinking of past days, she forgot her daughter until Elizabeth Jane touched her arm. Can you see him, mother? Whispered the girl. Yes, yes, answered her mother hastily. I can see him, and it is enough for me. Now I only want to go to die. Why, whispered her daughter. Don't you think he will be kind to us? He looks a generous man. What a gentleman he is, isn't he? And how his diamond studs shine. How strange that you should have said he might be in jail or in the poorhouse. Why do you feel so afraid of him? I am not at all. I'll call on him tomorrow. He can only say he is not our relative. Elizabeth Jane asked the old man why there was no wine in the mayor's glass. He said he had heard that the mayor had sworn an oath many years ago. He did not know why, but he had heard that the oath still had 2 years to run. The old man also told Elizabeth Jane that the mayor was a very important man in Casterbridge. He was one of the biggest corn merchants in the part of the country. But this year he was in a little trouble because of the wheat that had gone bad. When the dinner was over, the speeches began. The mayor spoke about the bad wheat and the bad bread. You must understand that accidents happen in any large business, he said. You must remember that the weather just at harvest time was worse than we have known it for years. However, I have learned something from this. Since I found my business too large to be looked after properly by myself alone, I have advertised for a good man to work as manager. When I have got him, you will find these mistakes will no longer occur. In the meantime, if anybody will tell me how to turn bad wheat into good, I'll take the bad back with pleasure. But it can't be done. A stranger who had joined the crowd some minutes before smiled on hearing the mayor's words. Quickly he took out a notebook and wrote down a few words. He tore out the page, folded it, and then walked up to the hotel door. Give this to the mayor, he said to one of the hotel servants, who was standing near the entrance, and handed the man his note. And can you tell me, he added, where I can find a respectable hotel that's a little less expensive than this one? He was directed to Three Mariners and went off quickly as though more interested in where he would stay than in what would happen to his note. Elizabeth Jane had noticed the young man almost from the first. He was good looking, fair haired, and thin, and he spoke with a Scottish accent. Watching through the main window again, after the Scotsman had left, she saw his note being taken to the mayor. Hanchard looked at it carelessly, unfolded it with one hand, and glanced through it. It had an unexpected effect on him, and he read it again more carefully. By this time, the speeches had given place to songs. Some of the company looked quite drunk. Only Henchard, who had no wine at all, remained dignified and was now silently thinking. The clock struck 9. Elizabeth Jane turned to her mother. It's getting late. We must find somewhere to stay. Her mother did not reply. Elizabeth Jane remembered the words spoken to the Scotsman. Let us go to the Three Mariners. Where the young man has gone, she said. He looks respectable. What do you say? Her mother agreed, and down the street they went. Once at the inn, Elizabeth Jane and her mother was shown to a small room at the top of the house. The Scotsman, who had arrived there some 20 minutes earlier, had been given the room the next door. The mayor, thinking about the contents of the note, had got up from the dinner at the King's Arms. Outside he saw the man who had delivered the note. The mayor asked who had sent it and where he could be found, and then deciding to visit the writer, he went to the Three Mariners. Then he was directed to the room of the young man. The two women in the next room were made immediately aware of the mayor's presence. The old walls were so thin that every word spoken in either room could be heard in the other. At first it seemed that the mayor thought the young man must be someone called Job, who had applied to be his manager. But the young man told his name was Donald Farfrae, and he was from Scotland. Farfrae said he was in the corn trade, but he was not looking for work in Casterbridge. He had stopped there on his way to Bristol, where he planned to take a ship to America. The mayor then said he was grateful to Farfrae for his note. It was about how to make bad grain good grain. And if this could really be done, it would help him a lot. Farfrae showed the mayor what to do. Henchard was very pleased. He immediately wanted Farfrae to work for him and tried to persuade him to be his manager. Offering him a good salary, Farfrae politely refused, saying that he was leaving early the next day. But Henchard pressed him again. He had been looking for 2 years for someone like Farfrae. He said, "Come work with me. Name your own terms. I'll agree to them willingly and not argue at all. I like you well, Farfrae, almost like a brother," said the mayor. There was a silence for a moment or two. Then the young Scotsman replied, "I never expected this. I did not. It must be fate, and perhaps I should not go against it. No, all right, I'll not go to America. I'll stay here and be your man." The two men shook hands and then left the room together. Elizabeth Jane looked at her mother in the silence that followed. "You are thinking, mother?" she asked softly. "Yes, I am thinking of Mr. Henchard's sudden liking for that young man. He was always like that. Now, surely, if he takes so warmly to people who are not related to him at all, he will be as friendly to us, his own relatives."